Israel, Kaba Egypt, Ethiopia, Sudan, Kaja Kushima, Wani me kona me waja shong. So Timbuktu, Ghana, Mali, Sumanguru, waja shong. Waja shong. So Timbuktu, Ghana, Mali, Sumanguru, waja shong. Manchester, Sumanguru, waja shong. Osetutu, Wamasa, Yasantwa, waja shong. Kaja Israel, Kaba Egypt, Ethiopia, Sudan, waja shong. Abaka, Bachimo, Wanye, Afo, Karacha, Akachmo, Wanye, Anunyam Feng. Abaka, Bachimo, Wanye, Afo, Karacha, Akachmo, Wanye, Anunyam Feng. Amaka, Minyam Matu, Amaka, Onyang Motu, Amaka, Wanyang Watumo. Amaka, Minyam Matu, Amaka, Onyang Motu, Amaka, Wanyang Watumo. Amaka, Wanyang Watumo, Wina, Tata, Kachimo, Waka, Wabanya, Kaya Jenjen, Sanya, Wabawa. Kaya Jenjen, Sanya, Wabawa. Kaya Jenjen, Sama, Wabawa. Kaya Jenjen, Sanya, Wabawa. Kaya Jenjen, Sanya, Wabawa. Kaya Jenjen, Sama, Wabawa. Kaya Jenjen, Sanya, Wabawa. Kaya Jenjen, Sanya, Wabawa. Kaya Jenjen, Sama, Wabawa. Kaya Jenjen, Sanya, Wabawa. Abaka, Bachimo, Wanye, Afo, Karacha, Akachmo, Wanye, Anunyam Feng. Abaka, Bachimo, Wanye, Afo, Karacha, Akachmo, Wanye, Anunyam Feng. Them say me no fit jump, them say you no fit jump, them say we no fit jump. Them say me no fit jump, them say you no fit jump, them say we no go fit jump. I'm a girl when you want to my boy, not a child, catch my walk, wabanya. Kaya Jenjen, Sanya, Wabawa. Kaya Jenjen, Sanya, Wabawa. Kaya Jenjen, Sama, Wabawa. Kaya Jenjen, Sanya, Wabawa. Kaya Jenjen, Sanya, Wabawa. Kaya Jenjen, Sama, Wabawa. Kaya Jenjen, Sanya, Wabawa.
Good evening. Welcome to tonight's edition of the Ghanaian Community Awareness Forum. This program is put together in partnership with the Ghana Social Workers Union, the Ghana High Commission, corporate entities, private individuals who are in the field of law, and all the other organizations that come together to make the community a better place for us. Tonight, we are here to talk about how and when can your children be taken from your home. As a parent, as a family, all of us living in UK and other parts of the diaspora would one way or the other have encountered some involvement in social services, either through our friendship with other people or family and relations or ourselves. And we know very well that when those times happen, they are not a pleasant moment to be. So as a community, we are taking this initiative as a way of educating, informing, and giving you the opportunity to be more aware of some of the things that can lead them to your door. Of course, there are so many pros and cons to this topic, but we are going to focus on what can we do as a community to alleviate the stresses that this situation causes to a lot of our family in the diaspora. So tonight, this program put together Ghana Union, the umbrella body for Ghanaian community groups in UK and Ireland, the Ghana High Commission, put together with the Ghana Social Workers Union, and as I said earlier, corporate entities who are in themselves independent as solicitors, coming to give all of us your information that you need to deal with or be able to handle some of these situations. My name is Nana Kwesi Kwesin the First. I remind you to Otunfo of a hunter traditional area and the diaspora, also the chairman of Ghana Union UK. And tonight I'm privileged to be hosted here and be able to host my fellow colleagues who will be here to talk to us about some of the issues. In no single or particular order, if I will have with me Fiona Mould from Mould Haruna Solicitors, who is a solicitor who has been involved, tested, tried in some of these areas that we are going to talk about, and she's here to share her ideas with us, expertise with us. This is not a paid job. So whenever we have experts coming on a Friday evening at this time to share their knowledge with us, we deem it very grateful. And I'm grateful to you, Fiona, for being here. Thank you. I also will have with me Nana Yeboah. Nana Yeboah is a specialist within the social care work sector. I will leave her to introduce herself when the time comes, but most
Emmanuel, you're muted.
Am I unmuted? Yes, I think I am. So, Nana Yeboah has a lot of experience to share with us. And in that experience will include what she thinks we need to know about our community, how our culture can mix with our personal views and aspirations when it comes to dealing with our children, and why that interlock or conflict with the people that patrol our lives with our family lives in UK and other parts of Europe. I believe her focus will be on UK today. So in no particular order, this forum will have about an hour presentation. The two of them will take in turns and talk through some of the things they know best. And then we'll open it to question and answer sessions. Feel free to raise your hands when the time comes, one person at a time. There will be no one allowing yourself, we can't allow you to share your screen, but by all means, we will allow you to be able to ask questions. So, Fiona, thank you for joining us and welcome to the Ghanaian Community Awareness Forum. This is a one-stop shop to news, education, information to our people. And Nana, it's nice to have you. And I will leave the two of you to take it in turn. So if I may start with Fiona, a bit introduction about yourself, where you are, who you are, what you do, and all the good things you do for Ghanaian community in the past, a brief one, and then we'll go to Nana Yeboah, and then we can take the topic of our community and social care, when and why and how your children can become a point of concern to the authorities. Thank you. Please unmute yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Fiona Mould, and I am a family law solicitor in South London. And I specialize in public law, children, and domestic abuse matters. I also deal with divorces, child arrangements, and most things in relation to families. I've been doing this job for quite some time now, and I am very pleased to be able to join this forum, to be able to have a discussion with you about this very important matter, our children. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we have Nana Yeboah, please, to give us a brief about herself, and then we'll take in turns who present to us first. Nana, we are
Thank
listening.
you. Thank you, Royal Highness. Good evening, everyone. My name is Nana Yeboah. I am a senior practitioner. I've got, give or take, 13 to 14 years experience in children's services. I mainly work as a children's social worker, but then the experience is quite vast across board. And I am also a member of the Ghanaian Social Workers Union in London, currently the organizer. And the president asked me to come and represent GASU. So I am here in the capacity as a social worker representing GASU and not the local authority that I work for. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I think the point is clear. We will go straight to the presentation. So if I take from you, Nana Yeboah, why and how and when do we become a subject of concern to the authorities? It's
Right.
not a
Thank you.
So I will leave you to run the show for the next, as long as you are done, and I will pass the baton to Fiona, who will take us through the legalities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So again, I deem it a privilege and an opportunity to be here to share the knowledge that we have acquired with the community. So this topic is such a broad area. I will do my best to, touch on as many points as possible, and then hopefully the questions will open it up. Some we might have to come back to it and treat it as a topic on its own. So to begin, I mean, when we say social services, what is social services? Mainly, social services role is to safeguard children. Not just children, but the vulnerable in society. So when it comes to children, I mean, legally, we're looking at any child from the age of 0 to 18. Now, what do we safeguard and why do we do that? Now, we are safeguarding against anything that can affect the well-being of a child or children. What I mean by that is we're talking about abuse, right? And we've got categories of abuse. Now, under the categories, we've got 4, namely physical abuse, emotional, neglect, and then sexual abuse. If we talk about physical abuse, what are we saying? Again, we know that in this country, it is against the law to hit a child. However, the gray area is the law doesn't specify that you cannot hit the child. What we class as abuse or harm is the degree of harm caused to the child when you hit that child. Now, to break it further down, we're looking at unreasonable force. What constitutes unreasonable force is significant harm. When I say significant harm, okay, you can slap your child on the leg, for example, with an open palm. There'll be no bruise to that child. Maybe you just tapped. Yeah. And then there is the one that you actually hit the child with such a force that either they fall down, they bang their head, or from that force, they will get a bruise to the area where you have hit, or using an implement like belt, like a branch from the tree, like a cane, like, we use back home, or even the wooden spoon, the bankunta, the wooden spoon, the ladle, anything, slippers, shoe that you can pick, and then you throw at the child or you hit the child. Now, that is definitely going to cause the child significant harm because they're going to be injured. So another example will be that parents will use other forms like we know from, back home Ghana, and I'm making reference to Ghana because I'm from Ghana and we are from the Ghanaian Social Workers Union. They will use ginger, insert ginger as a way of punishment. We all, or most of us, grew up in Ghana and we can relate to that. Now, in this country, it is not permitted, it is not allowed. So, to not make it too heavy, what I'm trying to say in essence is anything that is used to hit a child, being it your hand, an implement, or any form of punishment that will cause a bruise on the child, an injury, a mark, is classed as physical abuse. Now, when this occurs, it will come to our attention. Our main aim is not to remove children from their parents. Social services is there to provide support for the families. So, again, we treat case by case depending on the history, the harm that has been caused. So we can look at support from early help or universal services. Now, when I say early help, we're looking at parenting support, strategies to manage challenging behaviors in the home. What can I do instead of hitting my child? What else can I do that will make an impact, that will make my child listen, that will make my child learn, so that as a parent, I don't get frustrated to the point where I will have to use an implement to hit my child. Now, there are cases where if a child has sustained an injury, then we will have to act under the different sections of the law that governs the work that we do. So, determining whether the child is safe to remain in your care will be down to either the child has sustained an injury there and there that we can see the evidence is clear, or that there is accumulating concerns over a period of time. Therefore, we then, as social workers, question the uncertainty of how safe the child will be remaining in that environment. So I'm going to end it here on physical abuse and move to emotional abuse. Now, when we say emotional abuse, unlike physical abuse, when a child is experiencing emotional abuse, you cannot see it. It is not physical. It is more internal. It is the behavior that comes out of the child that will lead us to believe that this child has experienced or is still experiencing emotional harm or emotional abuse because we cannot see the mark. For example, children being exposed to domestic abuse in the home, that is causing them emotional harm because they are witnessing mom and dad fighting. They are witnessing maybe mom and dad both using drugs, drinking, being drunk, or divorce and separation. Mental health, parental mental health. Now, parental mental health, how is that going to be seen? How is that going to show? It is how the mother or the father's mental health is impacting on their ability to parent that child safely within the home. So it is that impact that has on the children that is classed as emotional abuse. Now, moving on to sexual abuse, sexual abuse is clear. However, it can be complicated. So, sexual abuse mainly means that an act of causing sexual harm to any child under the age of 18. 18 because that is the legal age. However, we have age of consent. So in the UK, the age for a child to be able to consent to any sexual act is 16. So if you meet a child and they tell you I'm 18, meanwhile they are 13, and they say to you, oh yes, I'm okay to have sex, and you do, you are still breaking the law because they are not legally 18. They have told you an age, and so you will get yourself into trouble. Also, there is that bit where, again, has that child got a disability? Has that child got developmental delays? Has that child got the capacity to consent, to understand exactly what consent means? So again, we take that into consideration. Now, when we say sexual abuse, it's not just about penetration. It can be exposing children to sexualized content, pornography, causing children to watch, indecent images, so like pictures of her breasts. We are all adults here, so I will go as much as I can to make it meaningful. Letting them watch it can, adult on child, adult on adult, so mom and dad having sex, and then your children walk into their room, or you walk in their home naked, exposing yourself to their children, comes under child abuse. It can be child on child. It can be cousin on sister, uncle, auntie. Now we've got what we call bestiality, which is an act of performing any sexual act with an animal. And yes, animal, it does happen. Some people fantasize and they will do that. Or they have videos of, another human person performing a sexual act with an animal, exposing children, watching all of that comes under sexual abuse. Sending indecent images and receiving indecent images on your phone. So again, on WhatsApp groups, what are you receiving? What sort of videos are you receiving? What sort of pictures are you receiving? When you open it, it downloads to your phone. Yes, you are committing that, and you will get into trouble with the police if they find you. So again, we all need to be careful when it comes to receiving these images and being on different social media platforms, especially WhatsApp groups and what people send, because you might think it is funny that you've seen maybe a 16-year-old having sex with an animal, but why are you watching it? Why is it on your phone? So that I will leave it there for us to think about. Now, the last category is neglect. Again, neglect can be very, very challenging, and it can be very difficult to prove. Why? Because neglect, all the three categories that I've said, neglect covers it, because the neglectful act of omission or addition will constitute either sexual abuse, emotional abuse, or physical abuse. So basically, when we are looking at neglect, we are looking at how a parent is meeting the basic care need of their child, or the failure to meet that basic care needs. Now, what is the basic care need that a child needs? Food, making sure they are clean. They've got clean clothing, clean shoes, the right uniform, not too small attire, not too big. Ghana will say, so the child size is size 6, then you go and buy size 10. It comes under, neglect. Shelter. Are you homeless? Are you able to provide an appropriate roof over your family? How is the home condition? Is it clutter? Is it hazard free? Or can children just pick anything? Or can they get injured? If you have a baby that is starting to walk, have you got a stair gate? Have you not? So all of that comes under neglect. Now, supervision, lack of supervision. You are upstairs, your child is downstairs. They can go to the kitchen, they can pick a knife, they can open the tap. How are you supervising them? They can get out of the door, they can go missing. It all comes under neglect. And then leaving children home alone, which is a very touchy area. Leaving children home alone. Again, it comes under neglect, because all of these things that I have listed can put a child or a young person in danger. So those are the 4 categories. And again, as a parent, it is your responsibility to ensure that you are keeping your children safe from any of these abuse that can occur to them. Now, how does social services become involved with a family? As social services, we don't work in isolation. We don't know families. We cannot just walk on the street and say, excuse me, the way you are walking and holding your child's hand, I think there's an issue, so therefore let's speak. No, we rely on other agencies to inform us, because all these services in this country, they have a duty of care towards children, towards vulnerable adults. So they have a duty to report any concern, any safeguarding concern that, around the people that they oversee. Now, for example, this can be children, it can be adults. So all the 4 categories that I've listed, it applies to adults as well, because equally adults can be abused in all these 4 categories that I have mentioned. But for today, we are focusing on children. So I'll pack the adult bit. But if you have a question, please feel free and ask, and it will be answered. Now, as I was saying, if a child goes to the GP and the GP observing the child can see that the child is a bit smelly, hair has not been washed, nails are dirty, the teeth has not been brushed, yes, they will have a concern. And they can make a referral to social services to say, well, this is what we've observed. Can you look into it? Maybe mom is struggling. We don't know what's happening here. And they will refer to us because their remit is medical and our remit is the social bit. Another example, a child goes to school to say to the teacher, yesterday, my mom and dad were fighting and my dad pulled my mom's head, my mom fell down and my mom has got a black eye. Again, the teacher has a duty to inform social services because the child has gone to that trusted adult to say, this is my lived experience in my home. So now when we receive that referral, it comes into a team that we call MASH, which is Multi-Agency Safeguarding Hub. Now in this team, again, it's not just social workers. That is why we've got a multi-agency. So multi-agency, we've got the police in there, we've got social workers in there, we've got early help workers in there, we've got health professionals, mental health, we've got education. Now, when the referral comes through, we will triage it. And by triaging, I mean, we will look at it. We are looking at the history. Are you already known? Are you not known? What is the history telling us? Has this domestic abuse happened before? Has it been reported before? Okay, there is nothing. Now, we go to our partners to ask them. The reason being, sometimes as human beings, we will think that, okay, when I go to the GP, I'm going to tell the GP one story. And then I'll go to probation and tell them another, and I'll give school another story. Now, without us pulling all this information together, we will not be able to make the right decision that will safeguard and protect that vulnerable child. So we contact all of them, and then based on that information and the history we hold already on record, make a decision as to what category of support or help that we need to give. Now, when a referral comes and a child has an injury, we also rely on specialist assessment. So if a child, let's say a baby, eight-month-old baby, has got an unexplained fractured skull, we have to rely on the hospital, the pediatricians, to do what we call child protection medicals. They will then be able to tell us whether the injury was caused as an accident or it was non-accidental. So non-accidental means somebody intentionally has harmed that baby. The police then becomes involved because it becomes criminal, and then social becomes involved. Now, with sexual abuse, again, we need evidence. So we make a referral to the Sexual Assault Referral Center, and again, they will perform forensic examination, which is quite intimate and it is quite intrusive, to tell us that, yes, indeed, it has happened. These are our findings. And then we look at it. Now, we do not just work, because we want to do whatever we do. When we are governed by legislation, everything we do as social workers, social services, it is governed by legislation. So we've got the Children Act 1989, which is what provides the legislative framework for child protection in England. Now, children's services under this legislation are expected to provide help. And again, I will emphasize on the word help and support. It doesn't say that there is an expectation for us to take children away. It says that the expectation is for us to provide help and support to children in their area. Now, it breaks it down to area because we've got Bedfordshire, we've got Hertfordshire, we've got South London, we've got Croydon. So in your area, as a local authority, it is expected for you to provide help and support as part of a continuum. So as part of a service that, everyone is providing. So again, one of them can be early help, one of them can be universal. Now, when we say universal, we're talking about the GPs, the hospitals, the health visitors, the schools, and all of that. And then when we talk about early help, so all the universal services is tier 1. Tier 2 will be early help, where we're thinking, okay, we need to come in and provide some level of support. What does that support look like? If it is domestic, is it that mom need to, need some awareness course to be able to identify the early signs of abuse? How does she report? How does she keep herself safe? Safety planning. What do I do when my husband is angry, he's come home and he's drunk? What do I do? Lock yourself, make sure you have a phone, call the police. Don't come out. So these are the things we look at, and who best to provide those services is early help. So therefore, we send the case to early help. Now, with early help services, which again makes it easier for the family to relate and work with them. Now, if early help threshold is not met, we move on to level 3, which is section 17 of the Children's Act. So where we have more complex need of the family, we will then, or by law, we have to complete what we call section 17 assessment. Again, section 17 is voluntary. So when I call you as a social worker and I tell you, we need to do section 17, by law, I have to explain to you what it is for you to understand and ask for your consent. Now, if I ask for consent and you tell me that you don't give consent and you do not want to engage with the assessment, I then need to look further to see whether the next level, which is level 4 threshold, is met. I'll come back to level 4. So what are some of the areas, or what are some of the things that will class under section 17? Again, the list goes on and on. But just to mention a few, disability is one of it. A child that has got disability, a child with complex autism, ADHD, OCD, ODD, they are not regulating, they are not managing, parents are struggling at home. Yes, we'll have to look at section 17 assessment. Homelessness. Again, it is a very touchy area, because when it comes to homelessness, we will not just assess. We have to ensure that under the housing law legislation, you do not qualify, and the reasons why you do not. So if you make yourself intentionally homeless and you come to social services, I am sorry, you might not get it like that, because all these ones we have to, delve in and out. Again, no recourse to public funds. And when I say no recourse, we're talking about families that are in this country that, so to speak, might not have the right legal documents in the country. Therefore, they are not entitled to any benefits. So housing will not house them. They cannot get child support. They are struggling. They cannot work. So we class those ones as no recourse to public funds, families. And again, we will assess. Now, we will assess, but there are clauses, and every local authority has a way of going about it. So some local authorities will say, yes, we will assess. Whilst we are assessing, you are homeless, we will put you, in a place. You and your child can go to school maybe every week. We'll give you £50 for your outkeep until the assessment is completed. Some local authorities, before they do that assessment, will ensure that you have an existing application in the Home Office. So again, we work very closely with immigration. So if you go to immigration and you tell them a different name and date of birth, and then you give another one to your GP, when it comes to us, then we are like, who are you? Another example is, so to speak, maybe due to circumstances, you've given birth, but you didn't birth your child with your name because you didn't have papers. Now it becomes very touchy. Who are you? Are you mother? Okay, prove to us DNA. So it becomes complex. The reason why I am taking my time in this area is sometimes we say things without thinking of how it is going to impact in the future. So we all need to be mindful. Now, when this assessment is completed, it's either the outcome will be that going deeper and speaking to all these partner agencies that I've mentioned, threshold is not met for us to implement what we call child in need plan. But we will make a recommendation that maybe you need early help support targeted, or the need that we have identified can actually be met by the health visitor and school. So we make that decision. We close it off, no involvement, we go away. Or threshold has been met for us to implement a child in need plan, again, with your consent. If you say you don't want to consent and we don't have enough, unfortunately, we will go away, because some people say, oh, and you left the child and now the child is dead. What can we do? Because we cannot force, we cannot force ourselves to be involved in a family unless we have the evidence to work with. Now, if the evidence is there and we're trying to implement Section 17 and you say no, we will look at the next level, which is Section 47. Now, Section 47 is the top level, the top tier. It means that there is harm or significant harm. So, likelihood of suffering significant harm, or the child has already suffered the harm. Likelihood is if we leave this child here, this child is going to continue to be beaten by the mom and dad. This child is going to continue to be starved. This child is going to continue to sleep in a cold room. This child is going to, yeah. So it is the likelihood of that thing escalating to significant harm, or that the significant harm has already happened where the child has got an injury or a mark or has been abused sexually or has been exposed to, inappropriate behaviors in the home. Now, before a child is removed, so I've explained everything we do before we get to this, very sensitive area. I know there is a myth, Nana. There is a myth that goes round about social workers and social services. And one of them that I've heard is that social workers remove children because we get commission for every child that we remove. I don't know how true that is, because if it is true, then trust me, the local authority owes me some money. No, we do not remove for commission, not at all, because the welfare of the child, as stated by the Children's Act 1989, is that the welfare of the child is paramount. Now, before any child is removed, we have to prove beyond reasonable doubt that that child cannot be with mom and dad, or mom or dad, or an auntie, an uncle, a family member, a friend. There are only two people in the UK that can remove children. They have the power to remove children. Social workers are not one of them. We are not. Now, the police is one. And under the Children Act, Section 46 gives the police the power to protect a child or any vulnerable person. So where there is a cause of concern and there are reasons to believe that this child is not safe being in this home tonight, the police will exercise their power and police protect that child. Either they will take that child to custody, they will take that child to an auntie that mother has identified, a family friend that mother has identified that that person is safe. If there is nobody, then they come to social services to say, this is the situation, we've got this child. Then we look for a foster placement for that child. Now, this power only lasts for 72 hours. So within 72 hours, social services, school, health, whoever, or whatever agencies are involved will have to work together and ensure that a decision is reached before or within that 72 hours. If we are not able to reach a decision after 72 hours, it becomes illegal for that child not to be returned. So we have no option than to return the child home. In situations where we feel no, the child cannot go home, as a local authority, we will then have to go to court and make an application for another order that will override the order of the police. So we've got a couple. So we've got what we call emergency protection order. So we go to court, you write your statement, you go with your solicitors, you tell the judge why this child cannot be there and why the judge should give you an emergency protection order. Now that order again will last for 7 days. So again, within that 7 days, if you are not able to prove beyond reasonable doubt that the child cannot go home, by law, that child needs to go home. If you feel that you are not able to make that determination and decision and you need more time, you have to go back to court. And again, submitting a lot of evidence, being questioned, by different solicitors, the judge will then grant you what we call interim care order. Under that interim care order, again, it's not finalized. You have to bring a law of evidence, a law of assessments that will go on. I'm not going into details because I'll leave it for Fiona to do that bit. But again, questions comes up, and if I have to jump in, I will. The final order that they will make will be what we call full care order. And again, it is the judge that will make that after they consider all the evidence presented to them. Now, we've got another session, which is session 20, and that is voluntary accommodation. So for example, I knock on your door, all right, we've had a disclosure, your child has got an injury, we need to do further, investigations and all that. The police have deemed it not safe for this child to be returned to your care. These are the options. Do you agree for the local authority to accommodate your child? And if you say yes, you agree, then we give you the session 20 paperwork. We read it to you. We advise you to seek legal advice. Don't take what we are telling you as gospel. Go and seek independent legal advice. Speak to a solicitor. Let them explain it to you exactly what you are signing before you sign. Now, once that is signed,
I'm not
you
sure whether it is from my end or Nana.
Hello? Nana, are you there? Fiona, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Maybe Nana has dropped off. Yeah, so with the session 20, it is voluntary. You do not lose any of your rights as a parent. So you have to sign all the medical consent form for the foster carer to be able to take the child to the GP or have them go to the health visitor to have their immunizations and things like that. You still hold all the parental responsibility as a parent. And at any time you can withdraw your signature. You can withdraw your consent and say, you know what, I've had enough of you people. Whatever you said you were going to do, you haven't done. I want my children back. At that point, it's either we haven't got enough, we have to give you your children back, or again, we have to quickly go to court to state and prove with evidence beyond reasonable doubt to the judge why this child cannot come back home to get either an EPO or an ICO so that the children can continue to be in foster care. I'm going to leave it here. So I've gone through the support we provide, the legislation that governs all the work that we do, the categories of abuse, and the sessions that children can be removed to be protected before they come to the care of the local authority. So I'm not sure if Nana is there or Nana has dropped off.
I think he's having challenges at the moment. So if you guys can continue, that's okay.
Right. Okay. So Fiona, I think at this point, I will leave it to you to follow it up with the legal bits. Thank you.
Thank you, Nana. I think you've covered quite a lot of the legal bits. So shall I cover some of the social care bits then? The first thing I would like to discuss is the issue of parental responsibility. I think it's best for me to start by explaining the concept because this parental responsibility concept, it deliberately shifts away from the idea that parents have rights over their child towards the idea that they have responsibilities towards their child. You often hear parents saying, oh, it's my child. I'll do what he wants. He must do what I say, and so on and so forth. But we have to shift from that way of thinking because we are now in a jurisdiction where things are a little bit different from the way we did things back home in Ghana. So we are shifting now from the idea that, you know, we have rights and control over our children to us having responsibilities towards our children. Now, parental power to control a child is not for the benefit of parents, but it's for the child. And that is the way I want us to start thinking during this session and afterwards. Now, the Children's Act defines parental responsibility as all the rights, duties, and powers and responsibilities and the authority which by law a parent of a child has in relation to that child and the child's property. In reality and in practice, this just means that the person that has parental responsibility, and note that I'm not saying the parents, I'm just saying the person with parental responsibility has responsibility for taking all the important decisions in the child's life. For example, education, religion, medical care. It also enables the parents to make day-to-day decisions like, where should my child live, what they will eat, their recreation outings, and so on. Now, the married parents have joint parental responsibility. So if you're a couple, you're married, you have children, you both have parental responsibility. However, if the parents are not married, only the mother has parental responsibility, and an unmarried father can acquire parental responsibility if he is registered as the child's father in the child's birth certificate. Now, fathers, please take note of this. You will only have parental responsibility right from the start if your name is in the child's birth certificate and it says you are the father. Now, another way of having parental responsibility is entering into a parental responsibility agreement with the mother, applying for a court order granting you a parental responsibility, or being appointed by the mother as guardian or by the court. Or if you obtain what we call the child arrangements order from the court, you can also have parental responsibility as an unmarried father. Now, the last way you can have parental responsibility will make all the ladies very happy is by marrying the mother. So if you marry the mother, you will have parental responsibility for the child. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is, and the reason why I said the person that holds parental responsibility, because you can have an organization as a person. So you can have the local authority having parental responsibility for your children. Now, this will not happen from the beginning, but it will happen if the local authority is granted a care order with respect to your child. So that is how the local authority can have parental responsibility. Now, we've heard from Nana about the support social services provides for families and children. And she's also talked about the Children Act imposing responsibilities on local authorities to provide certain services for children in need in their local area. Now, they also have a duty to prevent harm. So every local authority has to take reasonable steps through the provision of services, and I'm saying this and you will know why later, provision of services to prevent children in the area, their local area, from suffering ill treatment or neglect. And in a way, there is also a duty to take reasonable steps to reduce the need to bring care or supervision proceedings. Now, I'll talk about care proceedings later, but let me just explain about children in need. And that will also explain why social services sometimes is involved in your family. And you don't see why, but sometimes they identify some children as children in need. And they will undertake, like Nana has said, assessments. Now, a child in need is a child that is unlikely possibly to achieve or maintain a reasonable standard of health or development if social services does not support the family or does not provide that child with some sort of service. So they'll undertake an assessment and then they'll try to provide services, or this is what they're supposed to do, to try and provide services so that the family can live a good standard and the child can develop up to a good standard. Now, Nana has said also, she mentioned disabled children. Now, a disabled child may also be considered a child in need. Social services will assess and see what intervention the family will need. And sometimes what social services does is it doesn't provide everything. It may ask a voluntary organization to assist the family or any other agency that it works with. Now, the linking of a child's needs to these provision of services means that the local authority cannot enter your house, assess that you are a family in need or there are children in need, and at the same time refuse to provide services to meet that need. By the way, social services, even though they are supposed to provide these services, sometimes you will find that as a result of lack of resources, they may not provide everything, but they will do their best to provide services that will meet your child's needs. So it's not always intervention in the family just to remove children. So I just wanted to give this background so that you will see sometimes the intervention is not about removal. Now, it's also the duty of the local authority to safeguard and promote welfare of children, and the bringing of, in performing that duty, they are supposed to promote the upbringing of these children by their families. So that if, for example, a mother, for some reason, maybe mental ill health or some other reason, is unable to look after the child, social services is first supposed to look within the family, because we want our children to grow up in the family. So social services look within the family to see if there's anybody that is capable of looking after the children, so that the children remain at home and that they are not removed. Now, before I talk about removals, I want to talk about cases where the local authority, right at the beginning, when they feel that maybe there may be some concerns within the family and they are trying to assess to see if they can provide some support or service so that the family stays together. And so in these cases where the local authority expresses concern about the care of the children by their parents, it is always good, I would always advise that the parents seek legal advice. It's always good to seek legal advice at an early stage. I'm not saying this because I'm a solicitor, but once you get legal advice, the whys and wherefores will always be explained to you, and you will have support throughout the process. And it helps to resolve matters at a very early stage. If you get a good solicitor that understands you, understands your family, they will try to work with you in order for you to keep your children at home with you. Because the idea, that's what we all want, isn't it? Parents want to keep their children. Social services, believe it or not, want the children to stay at home with their parents because it's cheaper than for the children to go to foster care. And also, solicitors will help you to work with other professionals to keep the children at home. So seek advice at an early stage. This legal advice may be given free of charge. A lot of people don't know this, so they don't go to lawyers. Advice where you have public law issues and the local authority being involved in your family, the legal advice is most of the time, in fact, all of the time really, is free of charge. So you need to get, and it comes under the Legal Aid Agency Funding Scheme. So go to a lawyer, find a family lawyer that has a legal aid franchise. So with this, it doesn't matter how rich you are, it doesn't matter how poor you are, you will have legal representation for public law proceedings under the Children Act. Yeah. So at the early stages, where the local authority has given you a letter saying that they have an intention to issue proceedings if certain things don't improve in your family, please go straight to a lawyer. Take that letter to the lawyer. It is free. You will get free advice, you get free support. When they have legal meetings at the local authority, your lawyer will go with you. Your lawyer will listen to everything local authority is saying. They will discuss it with you, and they will work with you to see how you can keep your children at home. It's, again, I repeat, free of charge. So the free legal aid that you can get is going to cover negotiations with the local authority before proceedings are issued. You'll get legal advice. Obtaining legal advice at this stage will help you understand the law, and you will have support before the matter goes to court. Now, some cases, and in fact, most cases, end at this stage, especially when the parents have taken legal advice and they have been guided through the process. Yeah. However, if the matter goes to court, don't be frightened. You will still get legal aid, and it's still going to be free. You are not going to get your salary to pay any lawyer. It is also going to be paid by legal aid. Yeah, you don't have to pay. Yeah. Now, parents are the ones that get this free legal advice. For other parties who want to be involved in one way or another, they will have what we call a means and merit test. And that can also be done. And it's very likely, if they can't pay for the legal cost, then the legal aid agency is there to assist. As you've already seen so far, the local authority is can get involved in families with respect to children's welfare, to promote the upbringing of children by their families through the provision of services. So what does that mean? It means that if the local authority wants to issue care proceedings, it must not do it unless there is clear evidence. And this is why they undertake so many assessments. A lot of parents don't like it. Why are they assessing my parenting capacity? I have been looking after my children for several years now. Social services have just turned up. They are telling me they want to check whether I'm capable of looking after my kids. But this is how they are able to assess the family, assess provision of services, and once they decide to issue proceedings, they have to prove that they have provided services. Those services have failed to meet the child's needs. Despite the services, the child is suffering some significant harm. In most cases, I advise at this early stage, cooperate with the local authority, cooperate with the assessments, and throw the onus on the local authority to show that it has done everything reasonable to assist the family and the child. And this has failed, which is why they are removing the children. Now, Nana talked about Section 20, that there may be some reasons why a parent will agree with the local authority to remove the children. Sometimes the example she gave was that there may be some assessment, maybe there's been a referral, they want to remove the children, assess the situation. Sometimes it's on a temporary basis, or sometimes it's a parent who maybe has fallen ill even, and there's nobody to look after the children, the local authority with agreement will take the children, and then afterwards they will return the children home. It's not every Section 20 removal that will lead to care proceedings or a permanent removal of the children. So what I want to say about Section 20 is that the local authority has to ensure that all those with parental responsibility are involved in the negotiations and agree on the provision of this Section 20 accommodation. Wherever possible, parental consent has to be properly recorded and evidenced. That's why she said she'll give you all the papers. If you have all these papers, please take it to a lawyer, let them read through with you so that you will understand very clearly. If you have questions about the legalities of it all, you can ask your lawyer and it will be explained. So you have to have the parent's signature. It has to be clear. It has to be simple, in straightforward language that the parent can understand. Because sometimes parents will come to you, I got this thing, I signed it, I don't even know what it means. Yeah. And then the parent must be told, that this Section 20 accommodation is voluntary. You can decide to have your children back at any time. So anybody with parental responsibility who can look after the child at home can ask for the child to be returned home. Sometimes parents go, and if you tell a parent you can just cancel it at any time, they'll go and cancel it. And what happens is that the local authority will issue proceedings. And this is why you need to get legal advice before you decide to go and cancel, because you are told you can just cancel it at any time doesn't mean you cancel, because there may be consequences and you will need some advice before you do that. Now, because as I said, if both parents are seeking the child's return and the local authority does not consider it to be in the child's best interest, they could apply for either an emergency protection order, an interim care order, or such like. Okay, so now removal of children. Nana touched on police protection. Now I'm going to talk about the removal that doesn't require a court order and removals that require court orders. So Section 20 doesn't require court order. Is with a voluntary arrangement between the local authority and the parents. Now there is police protection. Now, a child may be taken into police protection for up to 72 hours, as Nana has already said. And if a police constable thinks that he has reasonable cause to believe that the child is likely to suffer significant harm, if that child is not removed from where he is to suitable accommodation, or he has to try to prevent the child from being removed, because maybe if the child is removed, he will suffer significant harm. So the police have this power to do it. But this does not give the police parental responsibility for your child. They just protect your child for 72 hours. And this is used, for example, when children run away from home or they've been abandoned on the street. No, they say there's a child walking on the high street in the winter with just his underpants, and nobody knows where the parents are. The police will go in and the police will secure that child for 72 hours. They will call social services for social services normally to help them to accommodate the child. Now, this power is also used if there are unsuitable home circumstances, or to prevent children from being removed from hospital and all that. Like I said, the police don't acquire parental responsibility, but they have to do whatever is reasonable to safeguard and promote the child's welfare. and they must inform the local authority and request, well, they can request accommodation from them. Now, so Section 20, no court. Police protection, no court. I would always advise parents, try and resolve matters. Don't go to court. Let's try and resolve matters in a reasonable manner so we don't have to go to court. Now, there are two reasons. I know care proceedings, like I said, the legal aid agency will pay your the cost for you, your legal fees for you, so it will be free of charge to you. But the emotional turmoil that you go through when your children are being removed, you have to go to court to justify this, that, and the other. You are going to have assessments. It's going to take a long time. It's supposed to be 26 weeks long, the proceedings. Sometimes they are shorter, but rarely. They are usually longer. In fact, we sometimes have care proceedings lasting 18 months. A lot of parents who love their children, want their children home, this is a very long time for them. So as much as possible, at the early stages, even though, you may not be happy that the social worker is taking your child away, it's good to try and cooperate and try and understand the reasons why it's happening, and then work to convince the social worker or social services that you are a capable parent and you can make changes, the changes that they are asking for, so that you can keep your child at home. Now, first thing we need to know about the court is that when the court determines any question about the upbringing of a child's property, anything to do with a child, the welfare of the child is the court's paramount consideration. It means in the mind of the court, if I can put it this way, the most important thing is the child's welfare. So anything else is secondary. In family proceedings, you have to think about the welfare of children first. That is what the law means. So I always tell parents, when you are faced with anything, social services, court, anything, the first thing in your mind is, what is best for my child? That is the most important thing, the child. So you have to be child-focused. And when you're child-focused, when we start discussing our strategy for the case and all that, you will be in a good frame of mind, because you know it's not about what I want. It's not about what my husband did. And it's not about what my husband would think. My husband would think that I'm allowing the police into the house or things like that. No, it's not about that. It's not about one-upmanship. It's about children, vulnerable children. So it's very important for us to focus on that. Now, once a parent is focusing on the best interest of their child, welfare interest of their child, it's very easy to get the children back home. I promise you. So what orders can the local authority go to the court for? They can go for emergency protection. Now, this is in exceptional circumstances. The children have to be in danger, imminent danger. So they can get an emergency protection order, which is limited to 8 days. And this is to protect the child in an emergency where if he's not protected, he will suffer significant harm. He has to be removed from the place where he's suffering harm. It's an emergency. And because this is the removal of children from the parent, it has to be under exceptional circumstances. And the local authority has to prove that there is some danger to the child, and that's why the child is being removed. So, surprisingly, some people will not know this, but anybody can make an application for an EPO or emergency protection order. Anybody can do it. But the court will make the order if it is satisfied that there's reasonable cause to believe that the child is likely to suffer significant harm if he's not removed from where he is, the accommodation where he is, or if he's not provided a different accommodation. That is, if social services, for example, that do not take the child from home to foster care, the child will face imminent danger. Now, this can be granted for 8 days, although technically it should only be granted for as long as is necessary. And sometimes you can ask, the local authority can ask for an extension for up to 7 days. But what happens is that when the local authority applies for an EPO, if they feel that they need an extension, they will apply for a care order, and then they will get an interim care order, like Nana said. So the child will still be outside the home. Now, this doesn't mean that your child is going to be permanently away from you. Even at this point, if you have a solicitor with you, a solicitor that understands what has happened and it takes time to understand your family and is supporting you, they will work with you and you will undertake some assessments, etc. But the children can still come back home. So the fact that there's an emergency protection order, or the local authority is extending it or is asking for a care order, it does not mean your children will not come home. So let's go on to care orders, which you have heard about. So I'm going to explain what it is, and I'll be very quick because I'm mindful of the time and the fact that you will want to ask a lot of questions. A care order is an order placing a child in the care of a designated local authority. So if you are in Bromley, they will make a care order for Bromley. Or if you are in Lambeth, it will be granted to Lambeth. Yeah. The order, when granted, gives the local authority parental responsibility. And if you remember right at the beginning, I said, I'm going to explain what parental responsibility is. So this means if the local authority gets parental responsibility, they will have parental responsibility jointly with you, the mother, or with you, the parents, if both daddy and mommy have parental responsibility. So the local authority will have parental responsibility. Yeah. So now it will be 3 people with parental responsibility. Yeah, it doesn't mean that your parental responsibility is being taken away, but I'll talk about that in a minute. So they can get a care order. Now, this care order gives them parental responsibility. But there's another order that they can get, which is a supervision order. And this order puts the child under the supervision of the local authority. Now, here, the local authority doesn't have parental responsibility, but they will befriend your children and they will come home and see how the children are doing, give you some guidance and provide you with some support. Yeah. Now, where the court will only make a care or supervision order with respect to a child if that child concerned is suffering or likely to suffer significant harm. And that harm is attributable to the care given by him or likely to be given by him if the order is not made, and not being the reasonable care that you reasonably expect a parent to give. So let me explain. That your child will suffer harm or significant harm, or is likely to suffer if the child is not removed. And this is because of the care that the parents are giving. Yeah? The care that the parents are giving it's got to be care that we reasonably expect the parents to give. We know that we can't give perfect care to all the kids. We are all different. There's no perfect parent. But it's if the care is not what would be reasonable to expect a parent to give. For example, it's not reasonable for a parent to leave a 4-year-old child to look after a 2-year-old child. That's not reasonable. So the care that parent who did that was giving the children was not reasonable. So the care is not reasonable. They haven't suffered harm yet, but they are likely to suffer harm if this parent continues to do that. So this is just a simple explanation. Another reason why they could get a care order, and is if the child is beyond parental control. This will be our 14-year-olds, 12-year-olds who feel that they are grown up enough and they are very challenging at home and so on and so forth. They are always absconding and the parents cannot control them. So these children who are beyond parental control, the local authority may be able to get care orders. Yeah. Now, these conditions are known as the threshold criteria. Now, they are known as the threshold criteria because they are not grounds for making a care or supervision order, but they are the circumstances that must be found before the court would be justified in making this order. So in considering an application, the court must approach the matter in two ways. First, there has to be the threshold that is satisfied. And secondly, if the criteria are satisfied, whether they should make a court order. Yeah. So if the court is going to consider whether they should make a court order, what should they have in mind? At the beginning, I told you they have to have the welfare of the children paramount, isn't it? So they'll have to consider the children's welfare interest. So that will be what we call the welfare principle. Yeah. So in making the decision, the court must apply the welfare principle that the welfare of the child is the paramount consideration. Also, a delay will prejudice the child. They have to consider something called a welfare checklist. That is a list of things that helps them to establish, to consider the welfare interests of the child. For example, the wishes and feelings of children, their physical, emotional, and educational needs, the effect of changes to the children, their age, their background, and so on. Any harm that the children have suffered and any harm that they are likely to suffer. The parents' capability, yeah, and then the powers given to the court. Because even though the local authority has made an application for care order or whatever, the court can make a number of orders. They can make the care order, they can make a supervision order, they can make a child arrangements order for the child to move from the mother and go and live with the father. They can make something called a special guardianship order. There are so many orders that the court will have to consider. But in doing all this, it's the welfare principle that the child's welfare is paramount. So they have to conduct a balancing exercise and consider principles of proportionality and all that. I don't want to go into all of these things. You'll be all bored, but they have to have, the local authority has to have proper evidence, and the court will have to consider all the circumstances whilst analyzing the arguments for and against that everybody will have in the court, including the parents. And this will be followed by a reasoned judgment by the judge, who will evaluate everybody's opinion and undertake a global and holistic view of the whole case in order to establish what will be in the child's welfare interests. At this point, I want to stop in case some of you are asleep and then see if there are any questions, because I don't think we've got a lot of time. Is Nana there? Thank you. So I'm handing over to you, Nana Kwesi.
Thank you. It's been a very deep exercise this evening. A lot of information has been shared by yourself and Nana Yeboah. And so we are going straight to Q&A. Anyone with your hand up, we are going to call you in that order. Those who want to put a message in the chat room can do so. Please, let's have a conversation in the next 20 to 40 minutes. As many as want to ask a question, the better, so that we can come back to explaining the bit that we may not have understood well. It is in our interest to do so because our community, as you know, have a lot of these circumstances. Some are actually going through a lot of pain as a result. Now, I have one question, one or two, and I'll come back to the other one when I'm done with the first one, after I've seen some hands up. Nana Yeboah, this goes to you as the social, and I believe Fiona may help. Most often, social services turn up at your door with almost an approach of an attack. So there's a conflict between being there to help and support and putting you as a guilty person already. How do you square that? Because the perception that we have, including myself in the past, dealing with social services for one or two other reasons, whenever they turn up at your door, they're not even interested in what explanation you've got to give. They've already formed an opinion. What training or cultural background? I know we are not in the United Kingdom to understand what other cultures, maybe Ghanaians and Fantis and Ewes and the rest do, because the law says we should abide by the law. But do they actually take time to understand some cultural dynamics before they come to some of these conclusions? Okay, how
Right,
do you
thank
come
you.
to circumstances where there's a clear conflict of culture and tradition, and of course, faced with the law?
Thank you very much. Right. So the question that you have asked, in some way, is very difficult to give you a direct answer. Because I mean, as human beings, we all have different approaches and how we present and whether we are smiling or not smiling or coming across as aggressive. But I mean, depending on the situation, or again, probably, for example, if this particular question relates to a family that has been working with the local authority for a long time, there might be communication issues, or there might be resistance from the parents that might then make the social worker come across that way. The training that we have, we are working with vulnerable children, we are working with families, so we are not enemies. We are not there to impose, we are not there to oppress. So we come with an understanding, yes. Before we turn up, we have to know why we are coming, because as Fiona said, and as we are, bound by the law, have to do what is within the requirements of the law. So we cannot just turn up being aggressive and all of that, because there are other legislations in this country that can be used against us: human rights, intimidation, all of that. So we are very mindful of it. Now, when it comes to the subject of culture, that is why we as Ghanaian social workers, or should I say one of the reasons why we've come together. One of the uncomfortable thing is, as an African, as a Caribbean, as a Black person, or should I say ethnic minority, Sitting in the office as a social worker and then hearing conversations about one of our kind. Sometimes it can be very uncomfortable. Sometimes you sit there and you're thinking, this doesn't sound right, or this does. Now, I'll give you an example. I was working and then I could hear a conversation going on. I just turned and I said to them, who are you talking about? Where is this person from? This story doesn't add up. I'm sure there is more to it. Now, I then offered to say, can I go with you and be your interpreter? Because I am sure you are not understanding this mother and she's not understanding you. And guess what? When we did that, the whole story became very clear. The supports and everything that needed to be put in place became very clear. So yes, the cultural element is there. Sometimes what we don't know can scare us, can make us become aggressive, it can make us become defensive, it can make us become agitated. But we do recognize that there is that gap. There is that, need for cultural education. However, it doesn't take away from the fact that what we have brought from our individual countries will supersede what is acceptable in this country. So education is needed on both sides in the community, as we are doing today, for them to understand that if you can beat your child, if you can insert ginger, in their private part in Ghana, and you go scot-free, nothing happens, doesn't mean you can do the same here. At the same time, we are trying to find trainings, and some of the local authorities, they do come to us to say, can you offer us training about ABCD? For example, a health visitor might come into your home and then they will see the chamber pot and bentua, and then they will just add one to one to say, sexual abuse, she's inserting this and, pushing concoctions and portions into, the baby. So we then need, or we have a duty to educate them that that's not what it is, and it is for medicinal purpose, unless the parent is using it as a form of punishment. There is that element as well. So yes, we do recognize that there is that. The local authorities are aware of it, the lawyers are aware of it, the court is aware of it, and when it is picked up at any point that we are delivering support and services, and there's a need for training, yes, that training will happen. Yes, we've got advocacy services and all of that parents, we advise them to tap into where there is the need. So in terms of someone turning up angry and all that, I'm not sure, maybe that's how they look, Nana, or maybe that's how they present. But normally, as a social worker, we have our own code of ethics that we work with, and you wouldn't want to be seen presenting yourself representing the government of, the UK government in that way.
Thank you. I'll come to you later with a bit of my own knowledge and experience dealing with Ghanaian community and the stories I hear and the people we deal with. But before that, I'll go to Mama Adriabu. If your hand is up, Adriabu, please unmute yourself and go to your question, please.
Hello, Nana. Thank you for giving me the audience. I'm Mama, as you said, I'm a member of the Ghana Social Workers Union. And just to add a little bit to what Nana said, getting towards the end of her presentation, that once the local authority decide that they're going to engage in, it's a Section 47 and they need to, instigate, investigation and, maybe then take it further, seek an order. I think we missed the public law order where the families are given the opportunity to actually engage in the process with us so that we don't get to the point where we are actually initiating the proceedings. So the parents are given the opportunity. And at that point, when you're given the opportunity to find a solicitor, maybe sometimes a solicitor is offered, but most of the time you are told to find one yourself. And if you find one and you're engaged in that public law order and you feel that the solicitor is not representing you, I've just seen a question come up. And I think that's referring to what I'm trying to say, that if you feel the solicitor is not representing you fairly or is not expressing your views across, sometimes not understanding the cultural aspects of things properly, you can't change the solicitor. Don't leave it till the very end when things have gone really, really bad, and then you're asking for that help. So right at the beginning, you can't ask to, you can't ask to change your solicitor and fine. And I think that, as part of this Ghanaian community thing, we're thinking that there should be more solicitor representative on the list that the local authority gives out, so that people can choose solicitors that will be able to represent them, within their cultural understanding of where they're coming from.
Thank you. Thank you for your contribution. Adesoya, please. Adesoya, if you're with us, please unmute yourself. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Nana. I just wanted to ask a couple of questions, maybe two. The first question is, to what extent do we have voluntary organizations that provide parenting assistance and parenting training? And are those valuable to you, so that if there's a case that the local authority gets involved, are they able to recommend to other organizations who can probably help to a large extent negotiate or help the parents in terms of understand the law better? And the second issue is about whether indeed it's important for us as a community to start looking at whether we can have...
I don't know if it's from my end, but I can't hear Mr. Adesoya well, so...
Should I shout? Okay. The second issue is whether indeed it's important for us as a community to have a bank of foster carers who may be able to be signposted, because I think that what is being talked about is that there are cultural issues, and that those cultural issues are sometimes difficult for the local authority to understand. So I'm really just throwing this out as to whether there are any intermediate steps that we as a group, an organization, can actually mediate to make it easier for our parents.
Okay.
Fiona, do you want to go first?
Yes, I wanted to talk about the fostering, and that, well, it's really the second question, that there are not many ethnic minority foster parents who are registered. And it's for us to look within our own community to see who can, work towards being a foster parent. And another issue is that when care proceedings, or when we are even in pre-proceeding stage, most parents are asked whether they have alternative family members, even sometimes friends from their support group, who can look after the children either in the interim or in the long term. It's usually better to be able to put people forward for the long term. And a lot of people think, oh, it has to be somebody that's living I'm in Bromley, so it has to be somebody in Bromley, somebody very close to me, and so on. No, actually, we have some children that even go back home to either Nigeria, Kenya, Ghana. In fact, we've had kids who have gone to the United States. So really, as soon as local authority is involved in your family, you have to look at alternative carers and bring them forward at a very early stage so that they can be assessed as long-term carers for your children. This does not mean that your children will not come back to you, but you have to have a second plan. You can't just have one plan, and if that plan does not work, children are too precious. We have to have what the local authority calls a parallel plan, so that if the local authority has a parallel plan, you, the parent, you also have a parallel plan, and have many parallel lines, so many alternative carers that can look after the children. And I think if we get ourselves more educated about this, we will work towards, getting these alternative carers in place. But I will encourage any ethnic minority, Ghanaian, Nigerian, Kenyan, you know, we all understand each other. We are all from the same place, really. So if we can encourage them to become foster parents, it's a very, very honorable job. So if we can get a few, you know, to increase the numbers, that will help with our children when they go into foster care. I'm afraid that I'm too old now, so I've forgotten your first question.
Bisoya, thank you. Thank you. Mawuli, please. Mawuli. Occasionally, I get kicked out of the forum because of a very hostile internet environment I'm in right now. So when it happens, you carry on, I will still come back. Mawuli, please.
All right, thank you, Nana. Yeah, what I wanted to add to the some form of abuse is threaten a child with a weapon. Sometimes you don't really have to hit a child. Some children have come into our care because they've been threatened by their parent that because they've done something wrong, they are going to be caned. They haven't been caned. And they were very frightened to return home. And unfortunately, some children were, you know, placed with family member or came into care for a temporary period whilst we try to put support in place to reassure the children that when they go home, nothing is going to happen to them, and parents agreeing to that. And also regarding the smack and don't leave a bruise, we've had a lot of cases where children have reported that they are being hit, they are being smacked. There is no evidence of any bruise, but then they've got themselves into trouble. So if anything, try and avoid hitting children. You can use other form of, you know, taking things from them. If they have to go out to play, maybe it can something that you can, you know, refuse them just temporarily as a form of punishment, rather than, you know, having in mind that actually I can smack, but I don't have to leave a bruise. Smack, you get yourself into trouble. Don't threaten children with any form of implement or anything, because again, it's against the law to threaten children. And unfortunately, there have been some children that it's not a law, but some have gone extreme to harm themselves to that extent because they were scared that they were going to be hit by their parents. So it's just a little bit to add to it in terms of the emotional abuse and threatening and all kind of things. Please try to avoid that because you get yourself into trouble with the law.
Thank you so much. This is the kind of contributions we need. As a community, we have to work together. If you have an expertise in these areas, it can be social workers, it can be health sector, it can be the justice system, it can be the criminal justice system. There are a lot of you have expertise that you can share. Please help us to educate our community about some of these things. So thank you for your contribution, Mawuli. May I call on Justina Stevens, please? Justina? Justina, if you're still with us, kindly unmute yourself. Okay, I'll move on to Nana Mensah. Do we have Nana Mensah with us, please?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think you were meant to unmute me. Your Royal Highness. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, we can hear you.
That's great. So just like you said, my name is Nana Mensah. I'm part of Ghanaian Social Workers Union. And I think it's great for us to be able to have times like this. Possibly what I would want to do, and we don't mind doing these kind of non-conventional stuff, I would want to speak to you. I am a social worker here, but I would presume I don't want us to feed with that stereotype that social workers, and that is the reason why unfortunately, unfortunately, suffer be person be cranny position at suffer into your suffer be person be or be more direction be. Unfortunately, who be kwa and ya be can say ye wa hanom si ebetumi aboa ye ho. Say ye be frɛ ye ho parent, ye be frɛ ye ho awofo. The ultimate ye betumi anya say ye betumi ahwɛ ye ma so. sika a yɛbɛpɛ agyapadeɛ a yɛbɛpɛ the only thing a yɛbɛtumi de aka yɛn ɛyɛ mma a wɔbɛtumi aka se o me maame ni anaa me papa ni anaa abusua a mefi mu ni nti unfortunately sɛ nneɛma mu yɛ den a unfortunately sɛ nneɛma mu yɛ den a ne yɛbɛka ne sɛ yɛwɔ hɔnom there are different professionals a yɛbɛtumi reach out sɛ yɛwɔ the likes of Ghana Union ebi a wontumi nim social worker bi but once wɔbɛnim social workers a wobɛtumi connect to ama ebi a wobɛtumi aboa wɔ saa situations ne ho nea yɛbɛka ne sɛ yɛntwɛn ɛma nneɛma mu nyɛ den ansa na ebi a wobɛka so o mepɛ sɛ me ne obi bɛkasa nti that is the first thing sɛ yɛfrɛ yɛn ho Ghanafoɔ and mɛtumi aka sɛ yɛn mu bebree yɛnya sika a first place a yɛbɛkɔ ɛyɛ Ghana for holiday but so obi bufu a ɔsɛ mede me ban bɛkɔ Ghana as punishment this is a way a yɛbɛtumi ahu sɛ mmɔfra no become resentful. How can Ghana be a place for holiday? Yet when things get wrong, Ghana becomes a place of threat. So abofrani ko school and then they would then report to one teacher say, oh, my baby, me parents or them Ghana. Straight away, parents becomes a friend and teacher becomes worried. I was so report to mine because when him Yebesu Ghana honum into the only ultimate answer, the only option they said, Wabeka yo, Yebe Pulia Bofrane Fionum. Metumi aka ho asem because many mmɔfra a wɔn agye wɔn afi a friend den awofo hɔ ɛna ɛyɛ adwuma nti a social workers obi a ne role but me de ne yɛ mmɔfra a wɔn agye wɔn afi parent hɔ unfortunately obi bɛka si o abofra kɔkɛ me nea metumi aka kyerɛ obi as professional ne sɛ wo wantumi antea wo ba me social worker ɛnyɛ me na metumi atea wo ba ama nti unfortunately sɛ behaviors bi and no crime will fear and into no by unfortunately, made to me I refer services, made to me I advise in the BBR, but I won't promise you. So obey the 18 no or maybe fear any better. Into 2 years now as parents. Me and Jane who say, oh, Oba care, they will be coming any better, by the time they leave care. My friendly B will find their very means to come into care because what to say, oh, Oba care, when your pocket money. When you seek for this, unfortunately, the ultimate is say you be my mofra atry and change as a bushiafo. Minya and kobisha me maso mami. But what it is that is my responsibility. Into more money in there and they say, oh, oba care, menya way, there be your mama didn't see a big craft, your more friend him, send a bay am webi or honoma through the professionals, no, you bet to me abua my mofran et me atra one parent or which I think, and I say, which we as a profession, we think say it is ultimate. Nti abusuafo, manuesi, enya brofo nko an yeka Ghanaian Social Workers Union. Ye bi ketri, ye bi kankran. Ye o German fo krapa a wo ho a wo ye Ghana fo. Ye nyina ye betumi aboa ho. Edamase.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Nana Mensah. Just to summarize for those that don't understand the Ghanaian language, all that Nana was trying to say is he wants to put a point across that as Ghanaian social workers, we don't just speak English. We can also speak our local dialect. So that is why he said that. And in a nutshell, he is advising that as parents, your children are best placed with you. They are, best, to live with you. And if you cannot parent your child in a way that it is safe, that you are meeting all their needs, do not think that a social worker will be able to do it for you. Do not think that a foster carer will be able to do it for you. And as I said, and as Fiona said, when we look at the welfare checklist, the best place for every child is within their family, So we should make all efforts that we can to keep our children within the family unit as opposed to coming into foster placement. Now, just to answer your first question, Adesowa, about services in the community. Yes, there are services, but it can be improved. Every area is different. And since we've had government cuts in financial support, it has become very, very difficult for, parents to access some of the supports that would have been beneficial and probably preventative, cut off. It's not there. It's no longer there. If I narrow it down to culturally appropriate services, I mean, I don't think I can mention about 5 or 10 that we can link to Ghana per se. But if we look at our Asian counterparts, they look after their own. They do look after their own. But unfortunately, with the Black minority, we not that we don't or we don't want to, there are limitations that prevent us from doing it. So as Ghanaian Social Workers Union, we are aware of it. And we are thinking of ways that we can improve it. This is the beginning. So if it is a parenting course that is needed or an interpreting service that is needed, when you call on us, if we are not able to do it ourselves, we will try our best to look for that appropriate agency that will be able to provide that. And I always say, not just to Ghanaian families that come, to my attention, but any family that English is not your first language, I always give them the option. The moment I hear your accent, because I cannot judge by name, because that name might be because you are married or adopted or something. So the moment I hear your accent, I offer you that service. Do you need an interpreter? Because I want to understand you and I want you to understand me. I am Black. I've got an accent. You might not understand my English. I'm trying to be British, but it's not working. So do you need an interpreter? If they opt for it, great. If they don't, then at least that has been offered. So we do try in our own small way to support in areas that we can. And as Fiona said, sometimes a family sit in front of you and you're thinking, if only you will stop talking, it won't go where it is going, but you cannot say it. And I've been in situations where, I've gone through the back to say to this father, your mannerisms, your stature and how you are speaking, it's coming across as aggressive. Just be mindful. And what did he do? He called my manager and told my manager, and had it not been that there are other people there and I didn't say it out of, malice, maybe I could have lost my job. So sometimes we are also very mindful of how we provide that advice because as we say in our local dialect, "Ano a yɛde kɔ bosea no, ɛnyɛ ɛno a na yɛde tua." So when the person is in need and they want that support, they behave differently, and as soon as they get it, they can turn against you. So we are mindful of all of that, even though we want to help our own. Sometimes we don't help ourselves, and regardless of any so sometimes it is sad to see the end, but we still try to do what we can. So yes, there is lack of services and we are trying the best that we can.
Thank you. Thank you. No, thank you. Nancy, we still have Nancy with us with the hand up, please. Nancy?
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. Please go straight to your question. We've got 10 minutes
No,
to
it's
answer.
not a question, it's a contribution.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'm also a social worker and I'm in the Ghanaian Social Workers Union and I work in the looked after team. My only contribution is I feel that parents should be really open and honest right from the word go, because a lot of parents hide a lot of information and even tell their children not to share information with professionals. And it gets to the later point where it's too late. And if you're hiding information, definitely the social services are going to know. There's nothing that you can hide from us. So I always feel it's really, really important to be open and honest from the word go. And if there's anything any support that can be offered is offered to you, and it doesn't get to the point where your children are taken from your care, then the truth comes out. At that point, the local authority would have lost trust in you, and it might be too late for anything to be done. So it's really, really important for parents to be really open and honest. I mean, if you're facing challenges, anything is going on, that is why we are here. We are here to support you and provide you with services so that the children are kept in your care. So yeah, that's my contribution. It's important to be just open and honest right from the word go. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your help, for your contribution. Can I go back to Justina Stevens? Are you able to unmute yourself now? Because everyone now can unmute yourself.
Oh, okay. Yes. So hello, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
I'm also
Yes.
part of the Ghanaian Social Workers Union, and I like to make a contribution in terms of the cultural competence element. What I like to say is there has been an improvement these days in the sense that there is a diverse group of social workers now. Social workers are not predominantly white and Caribbeans, these days. There is a lot of culturally diverse groups, and that is good in the sense that we are all able to bring our culture into our assessment, and we are able to challenge some of the what a lot of other professionals feel are the norms within certain cultures. So there is hope. There is more to be done, but I like to reassure that because of the diverse nature of the current social workers that are in the UK, things are moving on in a very good direction in terms of the cultural element stuff that all of us bring to our clients. Yeah.
Thank you, Justina. That's a very good contribution. Darling Saki, please.
Hi, I also want to make a contribution. I am also a member of the Ghanaian Social Workers Union. I just want to add to all of us that as social services, there is help out there because the way we were brought up, or like as Nana and the all the panelists have said, where we come from, sometimes you as a parent or as a responsible adult, you might actually be looking after your child, going about the way you were brought up on how to do things. You're not even aware that what you're doing might actually result in harming a child. So a typical example being that, if people would recall, I think a couple of years ago or so, it came on the news that a Ghanaian mother accidentally, I think it came to manslaughter, killed her child because the child had eating problems. Now, when we come from Africa or coming from Ghana, if you're not eating properly, we all know how, in quotes, your responsible adult or parent will literally, and I'm using the literal English translation, will hook you under the armpits and be spooning the food in your mouth. Now, it turned out that, unfortunately, because the mother, when she was asked, said this was how she was brought up. And unfortunately, when the little girl died and when they did the autopsy, they said they found pieces of meat in her lungs. Now, this is such an unfortunate situation because, being an empathic social worker as well, you can understand where this mother would be going through, that unknowingly, this is what I've done to my child. But she doesn't know anything else. So all my contribution, and what I'm saying is that, please, if there are health issues, we have finicky eaters or children who are fussy eaters, and please always seek help. The GPs are there. They can refer you on to somebody else to help you, because you might say, oh, I want to do it myself. Unknowingly, then it's resulted in a safeguarding. That's my little contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Adolfo, please. Is Emmanuel still with us?
Yes,
Otherwise,
I'm here. I'm trying to unmute myself.
Please
Yeah,
go straight to the question. We've only got a few minutes to bring this to an end.
that is fine. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I'm also a member of the Ghanaian Social Workers Union. I think my bit is about a cultural issue, and I'm glad that we have Ghana Union having this.
No. Is it mine again?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me,
Yes.
please? Okay.
Yes,
So
yes, yes,
I
we
don't
can.
I'm
know
just
whether it's
trying
my
to.
end again or not, but I can't hear what.
I think the others can hear me, isn't it?
Yes, we can. I think Nana's network is gone again.
Okay. All right. So let me just make my point quickly because of the time. It's just about the cultural issues that most of us as Ghanaians or people from minority ethnic groups, face. There are instances where you see people, the first time that they get to know that they can't hit their children here is when they are caught up with the law. So I'm just wondering, we're having this program, which is good. How are we as Ghanaians, maybe Ghana Union, how are we helping the Ghanaians? Now we have lots of Ghanaians coming in here. What are we trying? What are we doing to try and help them reintegrate them into our system here? Because we've had issues whereby you go out with the police, a parent who has actually physically chastised a child will be telling you, "Oh, I want a better future for the child. It's my child, so nobody can tell me what to do." It's only when they are sort of given that information at that point when they've already been in the situation, that's when they realize what they are doing is wrong. There have been so many instances where people out of ignorance, not knowing, and I think there has been discussion about how we reintegrate people from Africa, from Ghana into our system, because genuinely they want good future for their children. But how they do it because they don't know becomes a problem. So I think if there can be more of such programs, we know we have so many Ghanaian groups in the country, if we can extend some of these things to them so that when we have our new members coming here, if we can actually educate them on some of these things, because it may look simple, but at the end of the day, it can mess up your life. Sometimes I always pray that, although I'm a social worker, I pray that social workers do not get into the lives of family members, especially people from Ghana. There are instances where innocently somebody got involved with social services, and out of what she was doing, she was being labeled having mental health issue and things like that. Why should that even happen? Someone who had a child sort of about to be taken, from her, and unexplained injury. They've used research, they've used so many things, they can't find the woman is a Christian. The devil is a liar. She kept on saying those things. And at some point, they were trying to tag her as a mental health sort of mother. How can that be? So it took some of us as Ghanaians to explain to them that that's her religion, that's her belief. So you cannot tag her as somebody who has mental health issues. And it became even worse when she was at the hospital. She was asking for a knife to open a milk. Back home, we use knives to open a milk. But now they say, "Oh, yeah, she's coming to harm somebody here. So now let's just call the security and move her away from the baby." I said, no. Understand the culture of this person. So I think it's important that we try and help our members not to get into this sort of situation even in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very good contribution. Time will not allow me to expand. But all I do say is groups like GASU, groups like GNA, Ghana Nurses, groups like all the other bodies, established bodies, are doing one way or the other a bit to support the community people. The problem we have with Ghanaians are so introvert. They don't share anything. By the time a Ghanaian will share a problem, it is out of hand because they don't want to be labeled as a failure among their folks. So they will tend to keep so much, even when we cannot have control over it. But yes, that is why we are having some of these programs, and we have various topics coming. I will have one more room for one question for one person who hasn't asked anything, Matilda Corsa, and then we'll bring this to an end. This is not the end of our sessions. We are going to have a number of topics within social care and social welfare issues. We're also going to have every 2 weeks from now, Ghana Nurses Association has proudly sponsored us with personnel to be able to bring you health-related topics. So 2 weeks from 2 or 3 weeks from today on the 31st, we'll be doing something on women's health, cervical screening and menopause. So if you're a man here and you're seeing certain signs in your woman, if you're a brother or whatever, friend, experiencing certain things around your friends, don't feel like it's about women's health, so only women can join. No, we want you to come, understand it, support people around you as well. So the next 6 months, we are rotating between health issue, and social care issue. So we have the next 31st, we'll be holding something about women's health. The following 2 weeks or so, we'll come back to social care issue again. So look out for our flyers, push it to the community, encourage as many to join us so that we can all together be a successful community in the diaspora. Matilda, please.
Thank you very much. I'm also a member of Ghana Social Workers Union in the UK. And one thing that I want to contribute is the fact that with our work, the voice of the child carries a lot of influence in any decisions that we make. So I think for us and for the Ghanaian community, most of the time we don't listen to our children when they talk. Something that we might not have see anything wrong about it, it will mean a lot to the child. And I think someone made an example of threatening a child. I think it was Mauli who said that. To us, that is nothing, but to the child, that will make the child feel and say that I don't want to be in this house again. So all I want to say is that as parents, let's listen when our children talk to us. Let's be there, let's be present and take on the advice of our children and see what we can do to support our children before it escalates. Thank you.
Very much for your contribution. Someone want to know if they can invite this lovely group to come to your church. Of course, our mission is to get to the grassroots, your churches, your group meetings. If you can speak to your chairs, your organizers, to give us half an hour or an hour of your time, at least once a month, we can come and educate them, talk to them in private. In that scenario, you have more room to ask open questions that we probably wouldn't want to ask on this what is it called? Worldwide forum. On that note, I would like to thank you, Fiona, for your time, your expertise, and your knowledge that you've shared with us. And of course, Nana Yeboah, for giving us all the bits that we once took for granted around social and health care of our families and children. We want to thank the Ghana High Commission for supporting this program, along with Ghana Social Workers Union, and of course, Ghana Union bringing it to you. We thank you, have a restful weekend, and we'll be back same place, 3 weeks time on the 31st, and talk about women's health, menopause, and cervical screening. On that note, have a good weekend. God bless you. Take care. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.